Alrighty.
We are live.
We're a few minutes early. So we're gonna.
And the sound is working.
And the sound is working. Earlier this afternoon, the sound wasn't working. It was a crisis. Hello to everybody who's here, and thank you for coming.
Hello, Eva. How are you doing?
Hey, Eva. So today, we're going to just do some basic wire working. We are going to make some wrapped loops, and we're going to make some eye pins and, or, eye hook loops. So
hey, welcome back, Jessica.
Hey, Jessica.
She says, here.
Now, let's see. It's about a minute early, but I think that that's okay. So I started the last stream talking about safety glasses. I have to hold on just 1 second, guys. I have to refresh my YouTube because I can't see. I want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, everything's, the glasses are dead center on the screen.
Okay. But these are some safety glasses. And it's always really important to me to tell people you really should be wearing these when you're working with wire. It's actually very, very easy to get some wire in your eye or to scratch your eye. And I always mention that, if you wear prescription lenses, that's not enough. So you want to get a pair of safety glasses that you're comfortable in, and if you need to have prescription lenses on, then you want safety glasses that fit over them.
Joanne Bright says hello.
Hello, Joanne. So making jewelry is not a beauty competition. There's lots of times when you're making jewelry that you're just going to look a little goofy, and that's all there is to it. So.
Connor's Bull says hello.
Hey, Connie. So, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm not kidding. You need to have some safety glasses. So I've got my safety glasses on. And I'll talk a little bit about wire. So, wire can be made of different materials. I've got some copper wire here. I usually use bare copper wire because lots of times I apply a patina or I patinate my projects. And so a lot of the craft wire comes, it says non-tarnish. And you can't apply a patina to non-tarnished wire. And I have yet to find a way to take the whatever it is they put on it to make it non-tarnish off. This is some brass wire. Of course, you can get silver wire. Hold on just 1 second. This is some, this has come off of its coil, but this is some titanium wire. And I use titanium a lot for earring wires, because it's pretty hypoallergenic. So there you go. So you can get wire in different kinds of material. You can get wire in different shapes. You can get half round wire, you can get square wire, you can get round wire. We'll be using round wire today. That's what's best for what we're doing. You can get wire in different sizes, and it goes opposite of what you'd think. This is 20 gauge wire, and it is a thinner circumference than 18 gauge wire. Right, and then 16 gauge wire is bigger than 18 gauge wire, so it goes the opposite. And wire comes in different tempers, and that refers to how hard it is or how soft it is. So there's dead soft wire, there's half hard wire, and then there is hard wire. So again, what we're going to use today is dead soft wire, and I would recommend that you start with dead soft wire. If you haven't done a lot of this, start with dead soft. This This wire here, this titanium wire, this is half hard wire. And so when I make ear wires from it, it holds its shape um, better than the dead soft wire. But I'm going to show you what you can do with dead soft wire to work harden it so that it will hold its shape better. So we're going to start just by getting some wire straight. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about cutting wire and safety in a little bit. But usually I will try to work as much as I can from the coil, and that's because I don't want to waste wire. And most of the time you have to get your wire straight before you can use it. And I see a lot of people trying to straighten it like this. So what they're doing, what I'm doing here is I'm moving away from my body, right? But when you move away from your body like that, you actually put a curve in it. And that's super, super frustrating when you first start. So what you want to do is work parallel to your own body, right? And the reason why this works better is when you it's dirty wire. When you move your hand away from yourself, you're moving in an arc. It's very difficult not. I suppose you could really try hard not to have the arc, but it's just much easier to go just across your body, just parallel. And there's a couple of different. See, now I just got some tarnish on my fingers from that wire. And with dead soft wire, I usually just use a piece of felt. I know it's a funky orange color, but it's just felt. And that has the advantage of cleaning the wire a little bit, as well as getting it nice and straight. So you have a nice straight piece of wire. It's much easier to measure that. Another thing that people use a lot to straighten wire, and these are well loved, is these nylon jaw pliers. So these are pieces of nylon in here, and they can be replaced because they get chewed up from the wire. But again, I don't move away from my body. I move, parallel. It's another way. And sometimes people use these to work harden. They'll squeeze the wire a little bit to get it a little bit work hardened. All right. Now, I am going to show you the main reason why you need to have some safety glasses. I can. So these are what we call flush cutters. Electricians call them side cutters. I guess they have a few other names, but I've always called them flush cutters. And so they have, they come to a point and they have a side that's, I guess, indented. And then they have a side that's flat. And it's you usually want to cut with the flat side. Now, I happen to have some pliers, some cutters that will decrease the chance that wire will sort of fly across the room on you. And that's these cutters here. So I'm just going to show you. So see, it kind of holds the piece of wire. It's a safety feature. And it's specific to these pliers from Xuron. Xuron. But normally what happens is if you have a pair of flush cutters and you cut the wire, it flies. It flies across the room. So it's okay for me to do this here because I'm inside a light tent. and I'm not going to catch Mish. So flies right across the room. So that's, one of the main reasons why you want to have some safety glasses on. Now, the appropriate way to cut wire is to put your finger over the end and then use your flush cutters. And then there, see, it's a little bit stuck in my finger. So that's the right way to do it. That's the safe way to cut wire. If at all possible, you always want to, have your finger over the end that's going to get cut off. There we go. I should mention, just in case there's somebody new here, my boyfriend Mish is helping me out. He keeps an eye on the chat for me and things like that. So I'm not talking to myself and I'm not talking to an imaginary person. I'm talking to somebody who's really here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to make is something called an eye pin. Now this is another way. If you've got a long piece of wire, I've got two fingers holding on here, and I've got two fingers holding on here, and I'm going to cut it right about here. And, this way, nothing's going to become a missile. Because I'm holding on to both ends, right? So safety first. Safety, safety, safety first. Okay. And I pulled this up. I'm going to tape a piece of 220. I checked it out. 220 sandpaper down to my work surface. And I'm gonna, I cut these flush. If, I cut with this side. If I cut with this side, it doesn't cut it flush. It's difficult to see, but maybe if I put it down here, it cuts it in kind of a point. Let me see it. We're gonna wait and see if we can give a close up of that. I actually have
as close as I can get.
All right, well, let me try. I'm going to try that with, I have some thicker wire, and I'm going to try it with thicker wire just to see if it's a little bit more, visible.
I talk to my dog all the time, Jessica.
Jessica's talking to her dog. So that's a piece of 16 gauge wire, and you might be able to see that a little bit better. But that's a point. But trust me, you want to cut with that side. Now, just to be doubly sure that I've got it flush, I'm going to go ahead and, actually I can see that this one isn't. Hold on just one second. I'm going to go ahead and move this in a figure 8 over the sandpaper. And I believe the reason why they have you do a figure 8, and why it's always been recommended to do a figure 8, is if you're just going back and forth or side to side, I think that you have a tendency to put more pressure on one side than the other side, and so it doesn't come out flush. It comes out the opposite of flush. And it usually doesn't take very long to just get that flattened out and take any little sharp burrs off of it. Now, there are some tools called cut burrs that you can, or some people call them wire rounders, and you put, I need the other one. This is a larger one. And you put the wire in there and just twist back and forth. And that will round off the edge of the wire. And take any sharp burrs away. But for what we're doing, we're going to make these eye hooks. We don't necessarily want it to be round. We don't mind that, it's going to take the sharp burrs off there, but you want it to sit flush. So you want to flatten out that end of the wire. Flatten it out. We want flat. Now, let me find these are my round nose pliers, okay? And they're used, to make loops and to do some shaping. They're not really great at gripping. And what I've done is I've marked my pliers. So normally if you're doing, a jewelry project, you want all of your loops and all of your wrap loops to be the same size. And so the way that you do that is you mark around those pliers. And I can't really tell you exactly where to mark your pliers because everybody's pliers are a different size. Okay. So I'm going to put my wire right in the jaws of the pliers, and I'm going to run my finger over the top. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't want to be able to feel that wire. If you can feel that wire, you're going to get kind of I was saying oval, but it's sort of a teardrop shaped loop. If you can't feel the wire, then you're going to get a nice round loop. And most people want the round. They want the nice.
So Connor's Bull was asking, what is the name of that tool again?
The cup burr.
Yeah.
I've heard it called a wire rounder, which is really hard to say. It's makes my mouth do funny things. But I've always called them cup burrs. And I have a set in all different sizes. One size, this is actually for a 20 gauge wire. And this that I used is really probably more for like a 16 gauge wire, a thicker wire than what I have. And hold on a second, we'll see if this one is the one I think it is. Yeah, so this has just one side and one size, but many of them are double-sided. So I think that most people probably work with 20 gauge and 18 gauge. If they're making wire jewelry. If you do wire weaving and stuff like that, you might use smaller wire, larger wire. But I think if you got one that had a head for, no, that's a single one too. But a lot of them are double-sided. There's 20.
Eva says cup burr.
Cup burr. Yes.
Yeah.
See,
I kept thinking you were saying cut burr, and I'm like, well, yeah, it is cutting the burrs off the wire.
No, it's
Thanks, Eva.
It's cup burr. Some people call it a wire rounder. And it's an odd name, right? Because that makes it sound like you're adding a burr. And actually what you're doing is you're taking a burr away. All right, so back to this. So I'm putting my my wire right where the jaws of my pliers are marked. And I'm going to run my finger across there because I want a nice round loop. And then I'm just going to go ahead and turn the pliers and bend the wire a little bit.
Yeah, they are kind of cool, aren't they, Connie? Is it Connie?
I'm going to close that up a little bit. And so what we have now, let me close it a little bit more. What we have now is what they call a P-loop. And what you do from here is you take, these are called chain nose pliers. And these are all jewelry pliers that I have. They don't have any teeth. They're nice and smooth. And this just happens to be, I'm not endorsing any specific brand. I really think, this is going to sound silly, but I really think jewelry pliers are, it's your personal experience. Whatever pliers feels comfortable in your hands. I've always liked the Wubbers. They're reasonably priced. They are well made, and they're just comfortable in my hands.
So Eva says she's got 5 sizes for her Dremel wannabe.
Ah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Now you want to be, if you're using power tools with any kind of metal, you want to be doubly careful to protect your eyes. Okay. And we're not doing so much sanding here that I would really worry about it, but this is copper, and copper is a heavy metal, so if you're doing a lot of sanding of copper or a lot of filing of copper or any metal, you really should have a mask on. Okay, so right there, right where this loop meets the wire, I'm going to put my chain nose pliers in there. Sorry, I'm in a very awkward position. And I'm just bending it away from myself. And that center, so this is a huge, usually these aren't that big. That centers it. That takes it from a P loop to kind of a lollipop shape. Okay. Now, here, I'm going to show you what happens. Actually, I'll use another piece of wire. I am going to show you what happens if you can feel the wire above. Boy, that's... Because I know that's one of the things that people struggle with is getting round loops. All right, so again, my pliers are marked. I got that there, and I'm just gonna, this time I'm gonna let the wire stay where I can feel it a little bit. And I'm gonna put them side by side. And I think you can see, I'll have them facing the same way. It won't go. I think you can see that this one is pretty round. And this one, let me put it this way, because it's, I gotta chop a piece of it off. Hold on a second. This one has got more of a teardrop shape to it. So that might not bother you, but I'm the type of person it bothers. I like nice round loops, right? So you're probably sick of me talking about it by now, but there you go. There's my nice round loop. The other thing I wanted to mention is when I turn the pliers, by and large, I turn away from myself. There are times when you can't, but I usually will just try to turn away from myself. And the reason for that is you have more range of motion. So especially if you're trying to close a loop, if you're trying to close something, you know, if you're moving away from yourself, one, you have a little bit more control, but two, you just have more of a range of motion. I do see people taking loops. They make a loop, and what they do is they go toward themselves, and then, you know, there's a bigger gap there that you have to kind of close up. And it just never really quite gets closed. You have to...
So it takes a lot of fiddling.
Yeah, takes more fiddling. There you go, Mish. Thank you. Mish has the word for the day. More fiddling. It's fiddly. Okay, so now I'll cut this off. Now, what you can do with this is, you know, you can put it in a bead like this, or maybe not.
Also saying she's got a tool that makes eye pins in one move.
Yeah, I'm going to show that. I'm going to show that tool. Shh. Shh. You know, and then you can do dangles off that or something like that, right? Now, the other thing that you can do is you can make links. You can link up jewelry with these. And so the way that you do that, the way that you figure it all out is you measure your wire to begin with. Okay, so Oh, let me get a bigger piece. Let me get a bigger piece, and then you can watch me straighten it again. So exciting. So exciting. So I'm going to start with about 3 inches of wire.
Just to say, spoiler alert.
That's okay. That's okay. I am going to show that tool. All right, so I've got 3 inches of wire here. And I'm going to find my Reynolds pliers again. Let me trim it. And I'm going to make my loop. I got my P loop. And I'm going to break the neck. I've never liked that term, but that's what everybody calls it. And then I'm going to measure again. And so that loop, so now we're at 2.5. So that loop took a 1/2 inch of wire. So theoretically, theoretically, that means that I should leave a 1/2 inch of wire beyond the bead here. And that should be enough to make a matching loop. Theoretically. And then I'm going to just do the same thing, and I don't think that's going to be enough. But we can try. We can always try. Yeah. Almost. Almost. And I'm just going to break the neck here. So now you have a link. And if you want to add, another link to this, you open it up kind of like a jump ring. Kind of like a jump ring. You open it like, push it away. And then you can, I'm just going to do it on this. You put another piece on there and put it back. So there you go. So that is, if you want to just make some eye pins, you can make them that way. But you can also make, links with eye hooks, eye loops, I guess. What you guys think about that? All right, now guess what I have to show you? I have these tools that'll do that all in one step. That was priceless. So I have tools from Beadsmith. These are from Beadsmith, and they're called one-step loopers. And I believe that this one is a 1mm loop, and this one is a 3mm loop. And they do make it easy. I have some problems with them sometimes, but I think by and large they can make short work. There's a little bit of waste with them. I think we discovered with the 3mm loop, there was like up to 1 millimeter of wire wastage, which really isn't so much of a problem if you're working in copper or brass. But if you were working in silver or,
So Jessica did it with you that time.
Did she? And how did they come out, Jessica? I need a way to stream with live chat. I guess Zoom is the only way to do that, though. But anyways, these are called one-step loopers. This one does 3mm loops, and this one does, I believe, 1mm loop. And They can both be used with 18 or 20 gauge wire. You don't want to go any thicker than that. You don't really want to go any thinner than that. So I will, can they see? There's a hole in the side of the jaw. There's a hole right there.
You want to show that again?
Sure. Hole right there in the side of the jaw. And so you feed the piece of wire. And I mean, one of the nicest things about this is you don't have to do all the
She says they came out good.
good.
She's going to
Good.
send you a picture.
Good. Good. So I fed the wire through the jaws and then through that little hole. And so that's going to hold it in the right place for me. And then I'm going to squeeze the jaws.
Eva says, yeah, they're 2 millimeter and 3 millimeter.
Squeeze the jaw and then take this piece of wire here and bend it back a little bit. But that is a bit of waste there. Now, I suppose you could do it without feeding it through.
Well, yeah, you could probably figure out where your balance point is.
You know, without feeding it through, and then you would have less. Sometimes, I don't know if you can see that, they're not quite flat. You have to kind of take them and fix it. But that's not a big deal. So there you go. There's your first, you know, if you just wanted to make eye pins, you could do that all day long. All day, every day. And then, and forgive me, these are my, all from my pile of misfit beads. They're like beads that are a little lumpy. So I put my bead on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and thread it through again. That's of course I wouldn't be working with this much wire, and I'm snugging the bead right up there. Bend it back a little bit.
Well, I guess doing that, it doesn't really matter. You're not getting any waste that way.
Well, you are on the first loop.
Right, yeah, but that doesn't hurt to do the back half of the bead. You
Right.
got no waste there.
It depends on how much wire you start with. So now normally I would have bead caps and so on here, but I do find that these are a little bit looser than I'd like, but especially with polymer clay, that's probably a good thing. Because when you use metal with polymer clay, if it's really tight and rubbing up against it, it kind of grinds the polymer clay down on you. And you know, that even happens with glass, right? And it's one of the reasons why you use bead caps, right? Is that, you know, you to make it look pretty, but also to protect whatever the bead is made out of. So this one does happen to be polymer clay. I just had a leftover butterfly wing. So there's a little bit of play in there. But, you know, I think that's okay.
Yeah, Connie, they are really cool tools. When I first saw them, they blew me away.
And you know, there's a lot of other tools on the market that are much more, you know, I don't see them as much anymore. I think this one has just blown everybody right out of the water. But, you know, there used to be like looping tools and so on that were just so complicated to use. Now, I'll show you. This is the smaller one. So that's a much smaller loop, right? It's a much smaller loop. I don't think I would use. And so that's the downside too, is that you really only have two choices. But if you learn how to make your loops with a pair of regular round nose pliers, wherever you mark those pliers is the size of loop you get. So, you know, you have some more choices if you use regular pliers to do it.
Connie says she shattered so many glass beads, them over tightened.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a balance point, right? And you don't want things too tight. You really don't. And I keep showing that. I've been showing this all day long. So this was. Did I tell them about the rosary lady yet?
Yeah, you did say that with the prior string, but this is new people. So
I know. That's what I'm saying. Did I tell these guys? So the way that I learned all this stuff is I was a single mom and I was going to school and I was trying to better my life and I was on this bus every single day and I developed a group of bus friends. They actually were really nice. They had a little cookout for me when I graduated occupational therapy school. And they bought me a graduation gifts, but one of them was a woman who made rosaries. You know, I don't know. I know not everybody's Catholic, but she would sit on the bus making rosaries. That was her job. She was a rosary maker, and so she's the one that taught me. And she, you know, one of the things I did, I've had this for years now. I'm not going to show you this part with the jump rings because I wasn't very good at jump rings at the time. But I put this whole thing together. She gave me all these extra beads that she had, and I put this together to practice my wrap loops. And these red beads here are glass, and the hearts are glass, and these little guys here are glass. And I shattered a ton of them. Granted, I was doing it on a bus. I have to give myself some credit. Jumping up down on the bus, getting that done.
So would you tell people that the best way to learn wire weaving is a bumpy bus ride somewhere?
Stop. It's not wire weaving. We're doing wire wrapped jewelry, not wire weaving. Well, geez, if you do learn how to do it on a bumpy bus, you know, then you can do it anywhere, I guess. So that is eye pins. Now we're going to talk about wrapped loops and how you use wrapped loops. And I will tell you that one of the complaints I sometimes get, you know, with eye pins and eye loops is that they can kind of be undone easily. You know, they can break apart easily. And you hear that about jump rings too. Jump rings get a bad rap. You're not going to pull apart a wrapped loop. You're definitely not going to pull apart a wrapped loop. In fact, one of the things I tell people is that when you use wrapped loops, or I see people all the time say that they use split rings instead of jump rings. For safety's sake, you want to make sure that you make a break point in that necklace or that bracelet that you're making, you know, right where, you know, the clasp is or something. Just use a regular jump ring. You want that necklace to be able to break away if, you know, if necessary. You don't want to make strangle jewelry. You don't want to do that.
So Jessica's saying this is the part she missed from earlier.
You missed the wrap loops? Or you missed the strangle lecture?
Probably both.
I missed the strangle lecture. Now, when you first start to straighten out my wire here, and when you first start to make these wrap loops, you know, buy some cheap craft wire and give yourself plenty of wire to work with. Plenty of wire. I have 1,000 cutting tools here, but okay. So what I'm going to do, I move these out of the way.
Jessica's saying the wrap loops.
The wrap loops. Huh? Well, you probably missed the strangulation lecture at the same time then. Eh? I have a way I do things, so probably it was in that order. Now, you know, when you get really good at this, you don't have to, you're going to make a bend in this wire. And that bend is going to make a loop and then wrap around. So, you know, when you first start, you don't have to leave yourself that much wire. But, you know, if you're new, give yourself plenty of wire, right? You can even start down here if you want to. So the first thing I'm going to do is just bend that wire away from myself. I'm just using chain nose pliers to bend that wire away from myself. So I've made just an L shape. Right? And now I have that short side facing me, and I have my round nose pliers, and I've put that right where those pliers are marked, right? So we're going to do the exact same size. So the exact same size of loop, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that wire away from myself and over the top jaw of the pliers. Let's see that? I just pushed it over the top jaw of the pliers. And then what you have to do is reposition your pliers, right? So that I'm down here, right? This one's on the bottom, this one's on the top, and I'm just repositioning them so that the one that was on the bottom is now on the top. And the only reason why you're doing that is because you then want to be able to pull the wire across. Okay, so I call this the sweater stage, because not the sweater stage, the scarf stage, because it looks like, you know, you'd wrap a scarf. Now, some people will keep the loop in the round nose pliers and then wrap this around. And I'm not going to do that. One, because these pliers, these round nose pliers, aren't really meant to grip wire like this. They're, you know, meant to shape the wire. And so if you're new, and you try to hold this loop with the round nose pliers, sometimes it will slip down or it'll slip up, and then you won't have nice, consistently sized loops. The other reason I'm not going to do that is just the way these pliers are made, the way the Weber's pliers are made, that this square part here is going to get in my way and make it hard for me to wrap it around. So I'm going to take it out of the round nose pliers, and I'm going to hold it. I'm holding the actual loop. Do it probably more like this. Holding the actual loop just with some flat pliers. Okay, and I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to wrap. Now, this is dead soft wire. It is so soft that you could probably do this with your fingers, but I want you to learn how to do it with pliers, because it opens up, you know, if you get good with pliers, then you can use half hard, then you can use hard wire, you know, it's the better thing to do. Plus, your wraps are neater if you use your pliers. So most people will wrap a wrapped loop. Oh, it's a tongue twister. But they'll wrap a wrapped loop between 2 and 3 times. I always do 2.5. So you can see we've got the scarf stage going on. And I'm going to just take my chain nose pliers and that's one wrap right there. And I am tugging, I'm pulling to keep it neat. That's 2 wraps, but you're not done yet. I'm going to go around to the back, and that's 2.5. 2.5 wraps right there. Now on the back here, I didn't press it down too hard. I left it away from the base wire a little bit. I'm going to fix this a little bit, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not pressing that all the way down yet. This is just a little trick that I do. So I'm going to trim it off. And again, I'm going to use the flat side, the flush side of these pliers to trim it off. And because I left it up a little bit, I can now get in here with the, oops, except for that I didn't put it back right. But I can now get in here with a cup burr and take off those sharp edges, right? If you don't have a cup burr, you can just use one of these little jewelry files. to do that, just so you don't scratch your customers or anybody or yourself, whoever's going to wear the jewelry. And then again, I'm going to take my chain nose, or you could use a flat nose, and I'm just going to press that end in. And it actually needs to be trimmed a little bit more. And I'm sorry if I'm covering things up, but it is second nature for me to put a finger over the end of the wire.
Jessica says I love it when people fix their mistakes in tutorials and live, so that the same thing happens to me. I'll know how. So if the same thing happens to me, I know how to fix it.
Yeah. Even more. I cut it off even more. So there's one. It's a little bit wonky. That's a little bit wonky for a wrapped loop. But it's okay. So let me find a bead. Let me see. Well, this, like I said, this is my wonky bead pile. All right. So I've got.
I remember these beads. They were beautiful.
Yeah, but you know, some of them were like, you know, just too lumpy, just too. They were problematic. They were problem beads.
Well, you do have a rather large island of misfit.
I'm not the only one, though. They'll tell you. So I've got my wrap loop on this end, and I'm going to, I have my chain nose on this end, and I'm gonna come up a little bit here, and I'm gonna make that bend again, bend it away from me. And the goal here is to make sure I have I've left a little like stem here. And the goal is to make sure I have enough room to wrap 2.5 times again, right? So then once again, I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to get them in there. I'm going to wrap over, reposition the pliers, make my scarf. That's actually probably more room than I need. Make my scarf, take it off the pliers, hold it with this fella, hold it with this guy here, do one wrap, that's one wrap, do 2 wraps, and then, oop, it slipped on me, then around to the back. So again, that's a little bit loose too. I think I'm having a little bit of trouble, I think, because I'm used to having bead caps and stuff like that. That's a little bit loose. That's okay. And then I'd trim that. But what I'm going to do, instead of just trimming this, is I'm going to just redo this because I don't like the way those loops came out. That's as simple as that. And it's always good for you guys to see it again. So one more time with feeling. I'm going to bend that away from myself so it makes like an L shape. I'm going to have the shorter side facing toward me. Put it in the pliers where I've marked the pliers. What are you laughing at over there?
Oh, we have a cup battle going back and forth.
A cup battle?
Yeah.
I'm bending over the top of the top jaw, repositioning the pliers just so I have clearance for the scarf. This is the scarf stage. Hold it with my other pliers here, my flat nose pliers. Make my wraps nice and neat this time. One. And if you notice, when you're doing it for a while, and this is part of the problem too, is usually I do 1, 2, 3. I don't really stop, but you can stop so that everything's positioned neatly and correctly. 2, and then behind for 2.5. Where are my nifty cutters that don't have wire fly all over the place?
I hid them.
Trim it. Oh, I already like the way this one came out much better. Let me feel that there.
Jessica says, we're paying attention. Honest.
Round that off a little bit. And sort of just crush it down. Yeah. So I already like the way that wrap loop looks much better than the first one I made.
So Kanye's bull likes the 2.5 wrap trail.
All right, I put my bead on there. I think I went a little too far last time. I think I'll go this much. And once I figured that out, I'd mark these pliers too, right? I mean, why
hurt yourself?
Yeah. So again, we got that bend in the wire. We'll go back to our round nose pliers and put those in. Give myself enough room here. Put those in. I'm going to bend over the top. And I'm going to just reposition those wires just so I have enough to do the scarf stage, and that's still going to be too much room. Just enough room for the scarf stage there. And then wrap it around once.
So Jessica's asking if she doesn't have a cover or a file to file it down, is there something else she can do?
Lots of people when they first start use emery boards, nail files, like the kind of sandpapery ones. Or you can put some, I think I used to put sandpaper on like a popsicle stick. All right, so that's a much better looking.
We have done weird things for sandpaper.
But there we go. Even metal nail files will act a lot like I'm sorry, I just didn't want to send a wire across the room. So even like metal nail files will act as like a file for this soft wire. So there's our first link. But you have to make another link. you have to be able to link the beads together. And that's where it can get a little tricky, right? We're going to link beads together like this.
So Jessica says, oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, when you first start, you don't necessarily need to go get a lot of really, really expensive things. Figure out if you like it. For Polymer Clay Adventure this year, I did something called hardware store jewelry, where I just used, I just showed people, you know, you can just use the pliers. I'd suggest, you know, you take some time and find some pliers that are good and comfortable for you. But oh my God, I just used like a hammer from the garage. You know, I didn't do anything fancy at all. So this time what we're going to do, I feel like there's, so, you know, this lady who did the rosaries, she had something called rosary pliers. And so she only had one pair of pliers in her hand at all time. The rosary pliers have a cutter down here, and she just was amazing. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and make that bend. Make that bend in the Y. Right over the top. And I'm going to make the scarf. I'm at the scarf stage. I'm going to take it off of the round nose pliers. And I'm going to slip it onto that last link I made. Then I'm going to let that last link that I made just hang down and hold my loop.
So Jessica says, I literally just started with wire, so I don't know much. I have pliers though.
Yeah. That's one. That's two. And then around to the back. I think I got a little off track there. Let me pull that down. And you know, sometimes you don't get your loops like right next to each other. So you can just take your pliers and push them together, especially if you're using dead soft wire.
So is that the male equivalent of take a hammer to it?
Got a hammer, right?
Yeah, I agree, but she's saying that tools are something you acquire over time, not to worry about them.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, just like everything else, you know, you hear people say, "Oh, I bought all these tools for polymer clay, and you know, I mostly use toothpicks or something like that." It's the same thing with, you know, jewelry tools. In a minute, I'm going to show you two jewelry tools that I really don't use much. I don't use them much at all. They just don't work for me. I'm not saying they're a bad tool. I'm just saying they just don't do what I need, right? Or things the way I need them. So I'm just gonna, so now, you know, I've got a wrapped loop on this bead, and I've put another loop on here, and then I'm gonna add another bead, I hope, from the Island of Misfit Beads. Okay. And then same thing. I'm gonna push it away from myself. I'm going to get my round nose pliers in there. Push it away from me and over the top jaw. Reposition. Make my scarf. Hold it like that, and then do my wraps. 1, 2 and a half. And now you have some jewelry that, like I said, it's not going to come apart. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to mislead you. Wrap loops, they take practice. They really do. But they are very much worth it. I just can't seem to get this wire trimmed tonight. There we go. Now see that? That just went flying. That could have gone in my eyes. But they're not going to come apart, you know. Alrighty. So, just like I have some tools that could help you.
So Connie's Bowl is asking you, what are you marking your pliers with?
Oh, a Sharpie. A Sharpie. I'm sorry. They were already I had marked them during my last stream, so they were already. Yeah, so just a Sharpie, and then, you know, it's easy to, as a matter of fact, this is almost all worn off. But you know, it's really easy to just use a little alcohol or something to take that off. Okay. So these are from Wubbers. And you know, I usually just love everything from Wubbers, but I don't know whether I just can't get used to these tools or what it is, but just because I've had some trouble with them doesn't mean other people will. You know, other people might find them a godsend. And so these are looping pliers from Wubbers. And so I've just put my piece of wire in there, and you can see that see. All right. So my piece of wire is in there, and it's holding it pretty good right now. And so now I can do my scarf stage. There's my scarf stage. And again, I think it's this square block right here that gets in my way. And that's why I have trouble with these. So I'm going to bring that up as far as I can. And then I can take, you know, a pair of pliers. And
Jessica says she actually has that one.
And do my wraps. There's one. I think what I'm going to do is get a piece of aquarium tubing and put it on that center pin. So there's one. It could just be that I'm just not used to it.
Well,
there's
it looks
two.
Awkward.
I think, well, you have to think I've been doing it the other way for like decades now. See, I always just feel like it it just doesn't look good. But I think if I put a piece of aquarium tubing or maybe dipped it in tulle, what is it called? You know, there's tulle dip.
That'll deform it though. I would stick with aquarium tubing.
Yeah. Because there's other looping pliers that come with like an aquarium. Maybe it'd work better if I used the smaller one. So this is 18 gauge wire. Maybe I just need thicker. That's for a much thicker wire. I don't know. But like I said, just because, you know, just because I can't seem to use it doesn't mean that other people can't. So I did want to show. Maybe I'm not getting this. So I'm going to make the scarf. Right? Make the scarf here. And then let me try this. I'll really tug on it to make that tight. Really, really tug on it. Yeah, I can't. Yeah,
well,
so.
You're going reverse from everything you've taught me.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe I got to turn them around. You know, but I feel bad. I really wanted these to work. I really did, but. So you're saying if I. Yeah, see, I can't seem to get it tight enough on there. So, but, you know, keep them in mind. Watch videos of other people using these because I might be missing something, but I did try really, really hard to learn to use them. So the one-step loopers, you know, I didn't have any trouble with those at all. Right out of the box, I learned to use them. No problem. So I've talked about the fact that we're using some dead soft wire. And the problem with dead soft wire is if you make jump rings, you know, jump rings like this, If you make jump rings or you make, geez, I got a clay blade sitting here, or you make, eye pins out of dead soft wire, it's easier to for them to deform, and it's easier for them to fail. So I'm going to make a couple of wrap loops here so I can show you what you can do about that. Not wrap loops. That, by the way, hold on, I'm sorry. I'm forgetting to finish sentences. This is what happens to me when I create. So, these were made with dead soft wire too, these jump rings. And they can be easy to pull apart. And I talk about this all the time. When you sell jewelry, people come to the table and they try to break your jewelry. and it's like looking right at you while they're trying to pull your jewelry apart. And that's not cool. That's not cool at all. So these are dead soft. I can open that jump ring, with my fingers, and I can close that jump ring. So when you purchase jump rings, they're usually half hard wire, and so they're not that easy. What you have to do is
So Eva's got a gizmo for jump ring.
for jump. Is it like a ring? I see the people who do chainmail. They have like a ring that they wear that opens all their jump rings for them. So when you open a jump ring, you have your pliers on either side of the opening, and you're going to push one pair of pliers away from yourself, the other pair of pliers you're pulling toward yourself. And so that's how you open it. And to close it, you're going to wiggle. And then eventually you usually hear a click. Okay. Now I usually do, I cut my own jump rings with a jeweler saw, but that's a whole nother class. Like it's so we've got a little bit of extra time.
Okay, you're talking about the jump rings. You haven't talked about taking it from soft to.
I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. Then I'll either talk about jump rings or that.
It's a coiling gizmo. I think we have one of those.
Yeah, so you can take a coiling gizmo, and but just before I show you how you can make your wire a little bit work hardened, you can use, here we go. I knew I had some. You can use a pair of flush cutters to make some jump rings. The jump rings that you buy like on Amazon, like from Panda Hall and things like that, they usually have a little burr on them. And people tell you that you can file them, but it's hard to file because the outer diameter is larger than the inner diameter. So you start to file them, and it's very easy to wind up with jump rings that have a gap in the inner ring. So really the best way to do it is with a jeweler's saw. But if you don't have a jeweler's saw, this is some wire that I just coiled up. I don't think I even used like a gizmo. I think I just used, these are some bail making pliers, and I just wrapped the wire around the bail making pliers. And remember I told you that we always want to use the flat side of the cutters. So to do your own jump rings, you do the flat side, all right? Then you turn them around. And now you're going to use the flat side to trim that end you just cut a little bit, just to get it flush. And then you're going to turn them around and cut the next ring. And you keep doing that. Now, the downside to this is sometimes you wind up with different size jump rings. All right, but if you don't have a jeweler's saw, that's your best bet at getting jump rings that don't have a big burr on the ends. Because what really holds a jump ring closed is tension. If both these edges are very flush and you bring them together, the tension will hold them closed. And if you've ever been interested in doing any kind of soldering or anything like that, that kind of tension is important to learn because, solder won't fill any gaps. You've got to get it, jewelry solder won't fill any gaps. You've got to get things really flush and lined up. Okay. This is a bench block. And I have my bench block on a sandbag. And we're going to go out so I can show you this. It's a mess. It's a complete and utter mess over here. It is a complete and utter mess. So this is a chasing hammer. It's not the world's most expensive chasing hammer. And when you're holding jewelry hammers, you want to hold way down here. You don't want to choke up. You want to hold down here. And you're just using, I'm almost just letting the hammer fall. Right? I'm not going to come back here and smash any metal. That's not going to happen. So the more you work with wire, the more work hardened it becomes. And so one of the ways that you can do that is with a jewelry hammer. And so it shouldn't be really loud. And then now that's much harder for me to pull with my fingers, right? It's not perfect. But I really would have to use pliers to manipulate that. And it's the same thing, with these eye pins that we made. And if you wanted to get fancy, I'll show you on a bigger one. You can actually shape the metal a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on the top of this circle. And that actually really changes the shape a little bit. But the other thing, it does is it flattens the metal. If you use a metal hammer and a metal block, soft metal is going to become flatter than it was. And it's just unavoidable. So if you want to work harden without changing the shape of the wire, then what you do is you take your metal bench block out and you put a nylon block in there, and you use, this is huge, you use a nylon block, a nylon hammer to hammer, and a nylon hammer and a nylon block won't change the shape. It just won't change the shape of the wire. Now, I didn't get to show this in the last stream, but the final way that some people will work harden is they'll use these nylon jaw pliers to just keep pressing, just keep pressing. I haven't had a whole lot of success with this, but it is a technique that people use. They just keep, pressing and pressing and pressing with the nylon jaws. And that makes it a little bit harder and a little bit more difficult for people to come to your table and try to take your jewelry apart. Um, the last thing I wanted to say about jump rings is, people say that jump rings fail and they don't want to use jump rings and they use split rings, and they're creating safety hazards and everything else. What I often will do if I'm making jewelry, and really jump rings are the best way to put it together, is I'll make it a design element to use more than one jump ring. So if you've got two or even sometimes three jump rings in place, well, it's not likely that both of them are going to fail or all three jump rings would fail. Right? There'd be at least one jump ring left to hold your jewelry together until you got home, so you wouldn't lose a piece of it. But I'm probably going to do another thing just on jump rings.
We'll break out the big gizmos.
We'll break out the big guns. That's what we'll do. Okay.
So we've been going for an hour 25 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So does anybody have any specific questions, or is there anything you'd like me to do one more time? Purdy. Purdy, Purdy. Nope, we're not. I'm that good, am I? All right, then. We're going to do a little commercial. I just wanted to let you guys know I do appreciate. You have no idea how much I appreciate people coming out and seeing us and participating in these chats, and it just means a lot to us. And we've also had people support us through our online school, which is www.completeanduttermess.com. I do have lots and lots of free stuff up there for people to look at, but I also did just release a paid video on how to make these subtle metallic pins and pendants. And we just added a bonus chapter where I showed folks how to make some earrings also. And we're keeping it 50% off for the month of April. And so, if you want to go there and check it out, would appreciate it. We do know that people are in uncertain circumstances right now. We do understand that, but we're doing a little commercial anyways.
So Conyers asked, do you hammer on one side?
Usually I only have to hammer on one side. Especially when you use the metal block, very often you're putting a texture in. You're using like a texture hammer, and if you flip it over, you're gonna bang out the texture. So I think I just got in the habit of only doing one side. I don't think it would hurt to do both sides. I don't think it would hurt, but I mean, with this, I'm not trying to put a texture or anything like that. I'm trying to, I'm not trying to put a texture or anything like that in there. So I think one side is fine. We'll close that up a little bit.
All right, folks. As usual, we really appreciate your support.
Yeah.
Tell others about us. We'd like to grow this channel up so lots more people can share in it.
And go to we have a Facebook page, Complete and Utter Mess on Facebook. And if you have things that you want to see, go there and tell me. You don't have to tell me in a public post. You can just send me a message, or you can put it in the comments here on YouTube. But yeah, if you like us, tell people about us. Tell people about us so that everybody will come and see us. So, all right. Well, happy Friday, people, and everybody stay safe out there.
It's gin o'clock.
It's gin o'clock, Mish said. You tell people you're drinking at 7:15. My God, Mishi. My God.
I had to go outside today.
Mish had to go to his pharmacy where they met him. They met him at the car, right? They didn't even let you in. Yeah, Misha's high risk, so nobody's bringing Misha into a doctor's office right now. So, All right, guys. I will see you next week.
Have fun. Stay safe. Next week, let's talk about what weird creative things we did. I have been making apple crisps. That's my weird thing this week. All right, guys. We'll catch you later.